Hello, and welcome to Crafting Explored, your place for all things crafting and DIY. I'm Rial. In this video, we're going to take some thrift store finds and flip them into some high-end decor for your home, using just a few other things that you can pick up at the hardware store. Alright, so let's get exploring.
Alright, so here I have a lamp that I picked up at the thrift store. Now I got this guy for half off, so it was like $3.50. I thought that was a great steal. Now we're just gonna disassemble it, take everything apart, take the finial off. We're gonna be painting that gold to match the inside, to bring that gold to the top. I'm just gonna take the light bulb out. You just wanna make sure that it's all disassembled because we're gonna get ready to cover it. But the first thing we're gonna do is the lampshade. So the lampshade, we're going to spray from the bottom, so I do want to cover the top. Now, if you have big tape like me, you can use that, or some paper, some tape to cover it. Whatever works for you. But you just want to make sure that that hole is covered so nothing comes out the bottom. And we're going to flip this guy over and do the same thing, except we're going to just cover the fabric that touches the inside. So that way when we spray paint it, we don't get that gold. But it's not too big of a deal if you do, because it's going to be something that's going to be on the inside and you're not going to be able to see it all the time. So don't worry too much about this step. And then after that's all covered, I'm going to use this gold Rust-Oleum paint, and I'm going to do 2 coats of this. I found 2 coats worked pretty well. Letting it dry for about 15 minutes in between each coat, so that way it has a complete dryness. And then I did spray probably about like 6 to 8 inches away, so you have like a nice even spray. You don't want to spray too close because that's how you get drip marks. And then we're going to spray the finial gold to top it off. I just did this guy one time because it was no big deal. Letting that dry. Next I covered the lamp cord and I covered the bulb base. I did figure out afterwards that that top part does come off. But it's no big deal because once again it's going to be on the inside. So I'm just making sure that I'm covering it as even as possible here. If you do get it on the lamp base, it's no big deal because we are going to be covering the lamp in our joint compound. So it will be all covered up and you're not going to see any of that. So no big deal there, but make sure that we cover everything up nice and even right here so it's nice and detailed. And once that's all done, I just did 1 coat once again on this. We are next going to tape the inside after the gold on the inside of the lampshade base has dried. We're going to tape the opposite where we taped last time. So we want to tape underneath the fabric so that way we can paint it this time. And then I'm just going to stuff the inside with a bunch of paper so that way it doesn't leak through. Now afterwards I did realize that I did not tape the top or the opposite side, so you could do that too. I am right now taking this chestnut brown Rust-Oleum paint and just painting the edge. I really love this dark color. After that's all done, then we're going to flip it over. Now this was kind of like a thicker texture, so I did have to do about 3 or 4 coats on here. Now at first you see I sprayed a little too close. You want to do even and slow coats. So for this one, I really after I did it once, I realized it's like, okay, I need to do them a little farther away and I need to let it dry. So I definitely took my time on that and it took me about a half an hour to do. Next we're going to take our joint compound, I love this stuff, and we're just going to cover our base with it. I'm going to be using my hands with a glove because I found that's the best, so that way you can feel it. It's just a really nice tactile project. And now you want, if you're familiar with like baking, kind of like you're icing a cake. You don't want too much icing, but you don't want not enough icing. So you don't want to be able to see underneath it, but you don't want a huge glob. And this is very forgiving too because it's supposed to be very wabi-sabi, very rustic. It kind of reminds me of like a cloud or like a mound of whipped cream or something like that. I love it. And I love how it looks afterwards with the texture. And I am kind of purposely making like these offset swirls, but consistently around it, so that way light will pick up on that and kind of create a nice texture and nice shadow quality. Now once you have it all covered and you're going around your edges, I think if I do this again, I might use like a Q-tip or something afterwards to clean everything up. But once again, it's not that big of a deal. This is a $3 lamp from the thrift store. But you do want to be mindful at the bottom that you don't get too much on the bottom. I did get some like on the sides, and I found that it did dry just fine, but you also just don't want to put it on the very bottom. This one has felt on the bottom too, so I thought that was a good marker to where to stop at. So I just kind of go up to the felt line right there and make sure that it's all nice and covered. You don't have to do more than one layer, I would say, with this. I think just one layer works the best. And just even and slow. This doesn't dry fast. This lamp actually took 2 days to dry. I would say after a day it was soft but hard, and after 2 days it was perfectly hard. So it is going to take a little longer for this guy to dry for you. But you just want to make sure you go around the edges, make sure that you get everything around the light cord, around the bottom, make sure that your top is covered. I'm just going to go in here right now. Like I said, I would use a Q-tip I think next time, but I'm just using my pinky and getting into those spots. And now I'm just going around and cleaning up, but also adding a little more textural interest. And really, that's all you do. You just go until everything's covered and you like how it looks, and you just let it sit and dry. Don't disturb it. I'd let it sit at least a day before you disturbed it. And here it is, all set up. I love, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a meringue. It kind of looks like a meringue. And I love that dark chestnut lampshade. I think that brings the wood out on the table and like the books. It just adds like a really nice warmth to the whole room. I love this one a lot. Alright, so here I got a canvas at the thrift store for 99 cents. I thought that was a good deal. And I'm just put some gloves on, and we're going to cover this in some metallic gold Rust-Oleum paint. I used 2 coats of this. Now, if you have a piece of art you're going to upcycle and it has a lot of texture, I would maybe recommend using a little sandpaper to sand that down. But it doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to be covering this and just unveiling the color. So I just make sure that I completely cover it. I did 2 coats and I let it dry for about like 10-15 minutes in between, and then like an hour or so afterwards I kind of just like let it sit there and did something else. So after you have that all dry and ready, we're going to take, I love this stuff, joint compound. It's great for so many DIY art projects. And I'm just going to use my hands covered in gloves. It's a great textural craft. And you're just going to put that on there, kind of like you are icing a cake, you know, not too much, not too little. And you don't have to be perfect by putting it on. I think the more that you kind of just go with it, you know, like I went one way, I'm going another direction, that's going to create some really cool textural quality to your art and just add that little extra like oomph into it, you know. Like if you use a trowel, it's kind of too perfect, I feel. So once you have this all nice and covered, you know, you don't want too much, not too little. And you also want to make sure that once the whole thing is covered, that you kind of clean up the sides too, because you don't want like super big lumps or chunks on there. So you just want to go around the edge and clean that up with your hand, or even using the trowel for that part is really helpful. And then I kind of sometimes will go back in and add, like at that top corner you see that there's a little spot, and I'll just take that little excess and put that in spots that I need to. So once this is all nice and covered, we are going to use our trowel. I love this trowel because you'll see that like one side is smooth and one side is textured and one side's long and one side's short, so that really helps to do all kinds of things. Now if you don't have this, you could use like a fork would be really cool, a hairbrush, anything with like a teeth feel, and you could do any pattern. Like I'm just gonna do a little zigzag kind of like S, but even just like a stripe Maybe like a plaid design would be cool. And you can kind of see areas where I put a little more, how the white doesn't come all the way off. I think doing like that adds to it. It kind of adds depth, you know. And if you don't like it, you can always smooth it and try again. And here we have it. Now in this light, I don't feel like you can really see the gold. You can kind of see it a lot right there at the top, but in person, it just has so much character, and it's a really great pop piece to add to your shelf or to your wall, to do on a bigger piece. I just really love this. And this is perfect for someone who doesn't craft a lot, or even like a supervised kid craft. It's just super simple. Alright, so here we are going to upcycle this vase that I got at the thrift store for $1.99. It really reminds me, I think originally from IKEA, because I have a couple of these. But anyways, so we're going to use some metallic paint, and we're going to paint the inside of it. I'm going to do kind of like a gradient. You'll see what I mean in a minute, just like spraying a lot at the bottom. But we are going to be covering this on the outside, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But you're just going to spray that until it's opaque to your liking. You could do the whole thing, or you could do the kind of gradient how I'm doing right here, and then you just let it dry. It's not too big of a deal because we're going to be doing the outside, but I did let this dry for about like 15 minutes afterwards. Now we're going to take joint compounds. I love this stuff. You can pick it up at the hardware store. It's great for so many DIY crafts around the house, and it's a little, this is going to be a little bit kind of like tricky-ish, but bear with me here. You're going to basically take the joint compound and just rub it all over the vase. A kind of thinner layer. It does not have to be perfect. I think anything that is imperfection is going to add to the textural quality of this. So we're just going to make sure it's all nice and covered. Now I did go over and add some texture with my hands. And now you're going to need to find something so you can spin this and dry this on. Now I found this pack of wet wipes. These disinfectant wipes worked perfectly and sat on there. But you want something to kind of make a turntable. I think if I did this again, I would use a cake turntable to kind of help me. But it's not that big of a deal, because if you do have like a finger mark or something from where you're holding it and spinning it, you can easily just touch that up afterwards. I did add the joint compound to the bottom because I was like, it has to be covered, but honestly it's not a big deal, and it's probably best if you don't, so you have a even flat surface, because if you do add it to the bottom, you want to make sure that it's smooth and perfect. But I think if I did it again, I wouldn't. Now here I'm going to use one hand and spin it, and the other one I'm going to use the trowel and just go down around the vessel. And I'm doing kind of just like a corkscrew spiral, not perfect at all on purpose, just to create some cool texture and some lines in there. I could even see doing like vertical stripes would be really cool, or just like one or two, like one on one side and maybe like a half one on the other or something, whatever motif that you want to do. And here we have it with some other vases, objects, this little glass screen I made. Now I love how the light picks up the gold. It really looks like it's glazed, like you have like a glazed piece of pottery and the outside is like not glazed. I really love that quality, especially with these pairings of different ceramics and glass in there. And then I added some dry flowers into it just to zhuzh it up. And here we have them all three together, our lamp that we did, our piece of art, and our vase.
Alright, so what do you think about these projects? I'm obsessed. I love that joint compound. I feel like you use it for so many cool DIY art projects around the home, and the possibilities are endless. Like, you could even use it like around a mirror or something like that. But let me know down in the comments below if you tried anything, and if you did, how'd it turn out? Or if you even liked any of these. Alright, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, you made it to the end. Well, then you should hit subscribe so you don't miss out on anything.